Good evening. At this time, we'll start the meeting for the Carver Finance Committee for November 18th, 2019. Could we all rise for the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everyone. Tonight's meeting is being recorded by Area 58. Thank you as always. And we also have time for public comment. I don't see Donna jumping out of her seat, so I guess we're okay. We're going to move on to the grant application review and possible vote by South Shore Community Action.
I'm good.
All right.
I'm good.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have one.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing us this opportunity. My name is Lisa Spencer. I'm the Deputy Director at South Shore Community Action Council in Plymouth. We're a private, nonprofit 501c3 multi-service agency for the South Shore, and some of our programs reach to the Cape and Islands. Our programs are funded by federal, primarily, state funding, as well as private. We're founded in 1965. We have a long history of assisting low-income Carver residents who struggle with making ends meet, and we're very proud of the services we're able to provide. I'd like to give you a little bit of information about the work we do and the impact that we make every year in the lives of Carver residents. Many low-income households face a heat or eat dilemma. Our fuel assistance program last year in 2018 helped to keep 347 households warm by making home heating payments to households vendors in the amount of $363,000. Our energy conservation programs helped 169 Carver households lower their utility bills by making their homes more energy efficient through home weatherization, heating system repairs and replacements, and appliance energy consumption audits. Working with local contractors, we made $172,000 in energy efficiency improvements for Carver residents. Through our volunteer income tax program, 72 Carver residents received $97,000 in refunds. We transported 31 elderly or disabled Carver residents with door-to-door services in handicapped accessible vehicles from their homes to out-of-town medical appointments, in dialysis, shopping trips, etc., totaling nearly 2,330 trips. Our food resources program provided 19,884 pounds of perishable and non-perishable food to Carver residents. Our fiscal year, so you see the 2018 numbers in front of you, runs on the federal fiscal year. So that's October 1st through September 30th every year. We do happen to know our 2019 counts for Carver for the food resources program, and the reason I mention them is they're up significantly. So for the 2019 year that just ended, over 28,000 pounds were distributed through the Carver Council on Aging and primarily through Shane Gives Thanks from our food resources program. Our South Shore Early Education Program provides early education and care for 42 infants, toddlers, and preschoolers, including meals and snacks, bus transportation, on-site nurses, and parent training to name a few of the services provided through our comprehensive child care. This is just a snapshot of some of the work we've done on behalf of Carver residents. In total, in 2018, we assisted 444 Carver households, representing 782 residents of all ages, totaling over $535,000 in expenditures on their behalf. I'm here tonight hoping that the Finance Committee will consider helping us to serve your community by supporting our funding request. Any help you can give really matters and would be greatly appreciated. We did submit a grant application in the amount of $5,000. And again, anything that you can support would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you very much, Lisa.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you coming and telling us the rest of the story. Everybody's familiar with South Shore Community Action from a fuel assistance standpoint, maybe weatherization. I had no idea you did a lot of the things you do.
Oh, great.
So I think that's really awesome, I really do. And there's no doubt where the funding goes. So I dealt with South Shore Community Action as a vendor 20 years ago, and I knew what you did then, but I still didn't know about the food programs and the transportation and so forth and so on. So this is really neat.
Well, if anyone would like a tour, we certainly are there.
It's a
All the
great
time.
organization.
Does anyone have any questions?
Last week I came across an article in it's called The Wanderer. It's a local paper in Mattapoisett and Rochester and stuff. And it dealt with the special town meeting in Rochester dealing with a request by a citizen. And there's something that they refer to as the anti-aid amendment. And that for the town to grant the request of this gentleman, which I guess they've refused in the past, it would be illegal. It basically says that the town administrator over there, Susan, and I can't pronounce her last name, but that this would no doubt be a violation of the anti-aid amendment, meaning that municipal funds cannot be given out to non-town entities. I just throw that out there because...
No, I appreciate that. That was the whole basis for us to go to town meeting and get this taken off of the citizens petition article and
Yep.
put into the hands of the Finance Committee.
Right.
The anti-aid amendment runs afoul when there's no oversight. Doesn't say we can't do it. It says we can't just give it to them and say, have a nice time, we'll see you next year with 10 more signatures. There needs to be oversight.
Okay.
So that's what this does. In the spring, you'll be asked to come back and, for lack of a better phrase, we'll be asking you, what'd you do with the $5,000? So it'll be a similar program that you'll show us that it assisted X amount of people and so forth and so on. It's to give accountability
Absolutely.
and it's also designed just for the nonprofit corporations, nonprofit organizations. So that was the whole basis of the town meeting voting to give us this authority last year, was so that it did not run afoul of the anti-aid amendment. Because the way they were doing it did.
And
Okay.
didn't we also have our legal,
Yes.
they looked into it, and this is what we came up with too.
Okay, I just...
So we can support
Right.
Yep.
places like South Shore Community Action who support the town.
And Shane gives thanks and,
Oh, yeah.
because it's got to come
All
back
good
into
things.
the town.
I just
No, I'm glad you did.
came across this.
But that's where it came from for last year, so. Anyone?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the grant request for $5,000 for the South Shore Community Action Council.
Second.
We have a motion made and seconded to approve the $5,000 grant request. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Now, if you would be so kind as to send us an invoice,
Okay.
you can send it to my attention, you can email it to me if you'd like, on your letterhead. And then I'll forward that to the finance department, and they'll cut you a check.
Fabulous.
So this
Thank
will
you.
happen
Thank
pretty
you.
quick.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for all you guys do. I saw you shut it off.
They're a great organization.
They really are.
And they're local. The street. Thanks again.
Thank you.
See you in the spring.
Shoot the other.
The real test is gonna come when they have to come for the oversight. That's
Yes.
when we're gonna have a real good look at what you do with it.
But honestly, seeing what they put together here,
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
they definitely use up that $5,000 quickly.
Administrator update. TA or finance director, including but not limited to the start of the budget season. Mr. Malinowski.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the
Oh, we got
Finance Committee.
spreadsheets coming.
I got sheets everywhere. And you know what? Each one of these piles, so the more piles I make, that's the more things I have to talk about.
Oh,
I'm not done.
Slow down.
All right. So let me start with, okay, I'm going to start with our budget forecast. We're about 99% complete. We're waiting for, on the budget forecast, our 10-year forecast, we're waiting for one more set of numbers that we're supposed to get tomorrow, just to establish what the district improvement financing allotment is that's going to be going to the North Carver Water District. Once that's done, our document's ready for our next meeting. I think it's on December 5th?
December 2nd.
December 2nd, sorry about that. Monday, December 2nd.
Yes, we moved it, by the way, just for those that are questioning. It was December 5th. We've moved it to December 2nd at the request of the town administrator. And also, it appears that Monday nights are good as opposed to Thursday nights. So that may be the case going forward to make it easy for everybody. This is so great to see a full board tonight. I'm all happy about this.
I just don't know what to do. I guess somebody people to talk to.
Yeah.
You know, it's usually like 3 or 4 or 5 that are interested in what I'm saying. Now I have everybody here tonight. All right, so anyway, the numbers are looking good. I anticipate that our year-over-year increase is going to be close to 2.5%. This also includes several changes. One of the main changes is that our solar revenue will be divided within the 3 different buckets that were approved by the Board of Selectmen.
Yep.
Because solar money is not long-term perpetuity, is that it will have an end date. And so with that, a third is going into unfunded liabilities, OPEB and pension. And actually, on the pension piece, this really helps us because it forces Plymouth County to do an actuarial analysis just for Carver. Right now, we're blended into the whole county with 20-some other communities and other entities. And what happens is, based upon your people or that are in there, is where they give you a cost analysis. So if some of these towns like Duxbury are given, 4 and 5% raises every year, guess what? We're subsidizing those. And so that's why that piece is going to be important, because it'll spread things out a little bit more, so everybody will pay their actual amount. Secondly, it's going to be going into a stabilization reconstruction fund for the middle high school. And then thirdly, the other third goes back into to subsidize our capital and debt stabilization, which in essence releases a third of those funds back into the operation base. So that is moving forward pretty well. Second, on top of that, we're looking this year for our capital plan. All in, we're around $3.5 million that we have in our capital and debt stabilization account. This year, about $1.5 million. Actually, I take that back. $2 million is in fixed cost, and then with that, the residual is going to be able to be used in one-time cash projects. So that's come along pretty good, and I'm pretty I'm just about balanced so far for that. That'll also be released on the 2nd, following a capital outlay meeting that morning. I'm going through my piles quickly. Any questions on those two? Okay. We are, at last town meeting, the town passed the Green Energy Act, and so we're a green energy community. We've gone through and had all of our buildings evaluated, and with those, we have 50-some items, actually more than that, that can be looked at for energy-efficient cost savings. And with that, it also has, if we invest X into hypothetically LED lights, like these lights up here, is that by putting in the X number of dollars of capital cost, we can get a grant for that. And also, our return on investment is, 3 years or 6 years or whatever it is based upon project. So now we got good data to actually go through and figure out where we put money into retrofitting lights, and other types of equipment for a better return, so that we can save money in the long term.
We
So,
just get something for streetlights?
streetlights is also part of this, and there's another program that's out there for that. So yes, that's in the process too, for streetlights, to turn those into LED lights as well.
Cool.
So, again, another cost-saving thing that's moving forward in town. And that'll be voted by the school committee and the Board of Selectmen later this week. Next thing, I also just want to give everyone a heads up at our meeting on December 2nd. As we all heard with Steve Pratt and with Alan Germain and others, they attended meetings with our financial consultants doing the assessing activities, as well as some other activities. And with that, it identified, I'm not going to use the word errors, but many, I guess I don't use errors, I got to use mistakes, any items that were not properly recorded. I'm trying to get the politically correct way of saying that.
Areas of improvement?
Areas of improvement, that is exactly what they identified, lots of those. And
Errors.
Errors. So with that, Meg and myself and others have been working with the treasurer collector and looking at reorganizing the department. And as part of that reorganization, trying to eliminate opportunities for these errors or areas of improvement to occur in the future. So we are looking at a significant reorganization in that department, where we will be eliminating some positions and also creating some positions. And again, it's part of the self-review that we need to do every 3, 4, 5, 10 years, whatever it is. Normally communities do it every 50 years, but we try to do it faster, is to say, okay, what's working well when we did the consolidation and put those all together, and what still needs improvement. And that's kind of where we're at right now, is that some of these things just need to have people with certain qualifications that we didn't have before. And with those qualifications, we won't have these areas of improvement or mistakes or errors, whatever you want to call them. So again, there's going to be a major presentation done on that. In addition to that, we're also, building on the successes of the town, is when we did consolidate that from a separate assessing to a separate treasurer collector to a separate accounting, and also payroll and benefits were separate. We had a lot of this going on, so we don't have that anymore. It's now just making sure we get the right people in there with the right skill set to do what they need to do. So, overall it was a success, but again, this is just our continuous improvement that we need to make some modifications with that. In addition to that, we're also going to be looking at another organizational change, is that, I just talked about finance. 2 years ago, we did the facilities in the operation and maintenance department in the DPW, and that's been tremendous success. We've done our IT department. Obviously, we have our public safety that's there. And so what's left is everything else. And what we have identified is that if we take the library and the COA and the veterans and recreation, in each one of those groups that are doing important work for different age components of the town is that you have a part-time person here, a part-time person there, and maybe a part-time person there. Each one of them is doing a great job on activities and coordination, but I get this sometimes because one's in charge of scheduling, one's not in charge of scheduling, one doesn't know what the other side's doing because they're fragmented departments. So we're looking at restructuring that so that it follows really in the impetus behind this, not only from an organizational change, but also as the 55 and older survey that was done in the town. And, this idea that if you're in this certain age group, that you can only do these activities, and you're in this group, you can only do these. Well, what we're seeing is, recreation department now is offering photography classes and cooking classes. And they're offering little soccer classes too, or whatever it may be, or drama classes. So they're doing it at all different age groups. And the same thing with the COA and even some programs at the library. So we're just trying to figure out how we take the resources we have today, not cutting any of the resources, but figuring out how we can get them to work better together to enhance services for the population. So that's going to be a reorganization that's going to be, again, an enhancement to provide more services to meet the changing needs of the community versus just everybody having their silo. We're breaking down silos and we're widening it out, and we think that that's going to be pretty successful. And we've had a lot of groups meeting on that, and hopefully you'll be pleased with that when it comes out. So that's also on the docket for December 6th. So we're going to have popcorn, pizzas. There's going to be, all kinds of fun stuff.
You do the first time.
Let's see, tomorrow night at the Board of Selectmen's meeting, they're going to be establishing the tax rate. Again, I think Mr. Pratt went through that all with you in great detail. You could probably give some lessons on that after sitting through those, and those that had to watch it on video, you probably learned a little bit into those. So that's going to be going on tomorrow night. I do not see a push anymore to try to make a consolidated tax rate. I think that the justification that Steve put together as to how the split has benefited the town of Carver uniquely because of our personal property. And again, it's uniquely because of our personal property. If we didn't have that personal property, it would have a greater impact on educating our kids and providing public safety and the library and all the other services that we provide in town. So I do not see that being talked about, having a single rate. So again, that is going on tomorrow. And I guess the last thing that I want to talk about, which is probably going to take the most time tonight, because everything else is on December 2nd, is we had a meeting today with the police station building advisory committee. And I'm happy to say that we received, what was it? It was 7 bids on the project. So in this climate, getting 7 bids on anything is really good. But we're at a price point that people were looking at, some of the not huge contractors, but smaller contractors. We're also at the time of year where they're trying to line up certain projects for next year. We had them, aggressively bid on a bunch of our projects. Overall, now, I'm going to use budget versus estimate. In this project, different than the elementary school project and the fire station project, we do not have a project budget. In those projects, we had a not-to-exceed number that was approved based upon building a whole bunch of things up. Here, we built this project up piece by piece from the foundation up as to what the needs of the police department are, and doing that in a very frugal manner so that we're doing it based upon needs, not wants. And a police station, believe it or not, is just a unique animal that it led to this type of process before. So our estimate that we had, construction estimate, was $8.489 million. That's what just the construction. So this is having an entire building with all the electricity working, and that you can plug in computers and you can turn on the lights and everything will work. The cells will work, everything is functional. And that doesn't include putting in cameras, it doesn't include putting in computers, doesn't include the furniture. This is just hard construction costs, because that's how we built this project, is let's start with what that is and let's see where we go with it. So the $8.49 million. When we try to compare apples to apples, our bids the low bidder came in at $7.88 million. And with that, I'm just going to add a $400,000 contingency onto that. So we're at 8280. So we're about $200,000 at least under what the estimate was. So the committee voted to move forward with the low contractor, and the low contractor, just to give you some comparisons, I mentioned there were 7 bids. The 7 bids, when you look at the entire thing, over 7 things were, from the highest to the lowest was $500,000 off, which is a tight spread within 7 people for this big of a number. So, you know, we're happy that they knew what they were bidding on. Except, we didn't like one of the trades, which I'll get to in a second. So again, 7.88 plus another 400,000, you know, worst case scenario, 8.2. We think we can do a lot better than that, because we're not sure we need all that $500,000 for the construction piece. But one of the subs, we feel we can go back out and modify the plans to give them a different basis to bid on. So the committee's moving forward with the entire project, but for one sub. We're going to be working over the next couple weeks to redesign that sub within the whole project to see if it can be done in a more cost-effective way. Then we have to go out and bid that out, and hopefully do much better on that. Now, the numbers that I've given you right now do include the outbuilding. So the outbuilding is included in those numbers that I've given. So again, a little bit more work on our end. Now, one of the things that that we need to do is, we're in a position right now where we can execute a contract for about $6.96 million. That's our number right there, 696, just for the construction piece. Again, this doesn't include soft cost, doesn't include engineering, design, OPM, those things are all separate. But with that, we also want to, we have a timing issue, and I'll use the word cash flow because it's the best way to describe this, is that we have the certain authorization that we've received from town meeting, which adds up to $6.8 million and change. But what we also have is with the elementary school closeout project, as you've heard me mention, we're going to be receiving over $1 million back from that. The whole intent of that was to move this over into the police station once that money was available. So the town, when this was presented 2 years ago, we went to the town and says, listen, we're going to borrow 4.9 and 1.1, and that's it. So we're borrowing $6 million. Everything else is going to come out of one-time money, whether that's stuff out of our capital outlay budget, whether that's something out of free cash, whether that's something. But we're not going to go back to borrow any more money. We're going to live within our means and incrementally build this up with those funds. So with that, it's $1,085,944 is what our estimate is from MSBA. I'm told, and we've reviewed all the numbers through the whole team of accountants and the CPAs, that that's the number that we should be getting back. Now, having said that, there may be a discrepancy that we're off a fraction of a percent. But I mean, we're talking hundreds of dollars here. We're not talking anything major. And we won't know exactly what that number is until January and February when MSBA issues the final report. What we are doing in Department of Revenue is doing a one-time review of our free cash, a second review. And they knew we do our free cash once a year, but for this one, because this money was delayed through MSBA, it's not delayed, just what the time it takes. They don't close it out until 6 months after the project's been closed out. It's before they do that to go through your warranty program, is that then they'll classify it as free cash, it'll go to town meeting, and then town meeting can spend that just like the other free cash. Just on free cash, our free cash for this year was authorized at $1.355 million. That is in target with our 3 to 5%. That is the recommended savings or free cash allocation that a community should have every year, year over year. So we did fall within that target. So fast forward is, again, I mentioned we have a cash flow component of this $1.085 million that we needed sooner than April in order to enter into the contract. Not that we're going to be spending it all, because it's going to take 9 months, 12 months to spend the whole thing, but in order for me to enter into a contract, I have to have the money in the bank. Well, we have the money in the bank, subject to 2 votes. And that is, about 5 years ago, just like the Finance Committee has its reserve fund, we also set up a capital outlay reserve fund. And so that they could deal with projects, just like I'm talking about right now, that would happen mid-year, that could happen without a town meeting occurring because they've been authorized to spend that money. The 2 votes that it takes is, one, for the capital outlay to do that, and the second is for the Finance Committee to concur with the Capital Outlay Committee that there's a checks and balances, is that, you know, you're spending a lot of money right now and you want more than one board making that decision. So we've done that in the past for allocation of capital outlay money. I think when we did the
Fire department.
Yep, we bought all the PPE gears last year, so those who remember that, we bought all the new uniforms.
Yep.
Because they applied for a grant, they didn't get the grant. Because they didn't get the grant, they were exceeded their useful life and blah, blah, blah. So the Capital Outlay Committee and then the Finance Committee voted to release those funds. Then we went to town meeting and we took the same amount of funds and put it back into the Capital Outlay Reserve. So in essence, that's what I'm here tonight, because we just got the bids, is to ask you guys to support the Capital Outlay Committee in releasing out of their capital outlay account reserve fund, again, just like your reserve fund, the 1.085, I'm just going to call it 1.085 million. I'm going to leave the 944 out of it, because I got to give MSBA a couple $100 that they can haggle over, to release that into the police station building account, with the intent that when that money is released from MSBA, it'll go to town meeting at free cash and we'll replenish the account at that time. So that when a situation like this comes again, that we can do that as well. Did I make that complicated or did I simplify it? I don't know if I simplified it, but
So is capital outlay already voted on this on their?
they have not. So Capital Outlay's meeting Monday morning,
Okay.
next Monday. Again, we just got the numbers today, so we just put the agenda together for them to meet. It's just that you're meeting tonight, and because I didn't have this 48 hours ago, talked to Alan, he goes, well, let's move it forward, so we don't have to have a separate meeting, so that then, assuming that, and again, I'll answer any questions, that this committee supports the recommendation of the capital outlay, subject to the capital outlay making that recommendation and that vote, that you would give them concurrence to do this. Then after next Monday, we can then enter into the police contract to move the police contract forward and get that thing chugging along.
I'm gonna authorize this tonight under the 48-hour notice, because he got this information today. If we delay this, capital outlay will take this up on Monday, and then we have to take it up on December 2nd. I can't see we can't spend the money ourselves anyway. So I would be looking for a motion that would, and I'll give you a moment to speak to it. I'd be looking for a motion that would support this pending the capital outlay approval, so that we don't stand alone. So So, yes, sir.
Mike, could you just give us a little bit more definition on that I'll just call it 1.1 million coming from the MSBA?
Mm-hmm.
And is that something that was extra, unexpected? Or can you give a little more background on that? And how is it a sure thing?
Sure. I'd love to give you some more information on that. Yes, it's a sure thing. To say it was unexpected, it was expected, because so that project went a little bit different, that we had to go to town meeting to get town meeting authorization. And I believe the number that town meeting authorized us to borrow was like $24 or $26 million. I forget the exact number. And when we went out to bid, and through some other changes we did and some other cash coming in, that when it was all said and done, is that I said, you know what, the most we have to borrow is $20 million. Even though we were authorized to borrow this, we got great bids coming back in for that project. We also had other cost savings that were done and other funds that were used to help accelerate that project. So as a result of that, when it was all said and done, we barely touched any of the contingency. So the contingency was in that number. And when I say touch the contingency, from a construction engineering contingency piece, we barely touched that. We did have some owner-generated contingencies that we did, where we upgraded the network in town that all connects to the elementary school. So we did that instead of just doing it in piecemeal. We had some extra money, so we put that all together. And we did some upgrades that are in there. Long story short is that we had so much savings that were in there. This $1 million was known 2 years ago. This $1 million was known, 3 months into the project, that we were going to have this amount of money becoming available into the project. So it's 100% sure thing, because MSBA has a certain allotment. We fell within that allotment. They've taken out the pieces that they don't pay for, because there's some things they didn't pay for. And so, yes, I mean, I just talked to our, when I was just in the other room, that was our PMA calling. There was our owner's project manager, and just confirming everything with them that this is the number that it's going to be.
And then the amount of money you need for the police station to enter into a contract is just coincidentally almost the same amount as what's coming back from MSBA.
Isn't it funny how that happened when you went to town meeting last year and you knew this money is coming available and you put everything in place? Yes.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Michael, how does, assuming we take this vote tonight, it's approved, and then capital outlay does the same next Monday, when the money becomes available after MSBA does their audit, how does the money automatically go back into the capital stabilization reserve fund, or how does it get back in?
So it does it automatically. What the money does is the MSBA will send us, in essence, a check. They'll wire us the $1 million, okay? And say, because they've sent us back, 95+% of the money, and this is the residual that's left, the last 10%, whatever the number is. And then that goes into the town's additional revenue that it received. That additional revenue then gets calculated into free cash. So that additional revenue says, we thought we were going to bring in $1.3 million in additional revenue, but now we're going to bring in $2.5 million of additional revenue. And that's where we'll have DOR come back out to recertify for the second time our free cash number, which will go from 135 to 2.5. Then at town meeting, so that's done, DOR gives us a number and says you can now spend this money, subject to a town meeting vote. Then we go to town meeting, and where we have the free cash article, which is usually like Article 4 on the thing, maybe it's 3, and then in that, then we would what would be proposed is that we would reallocate the $1.085 million from free cash back into the capital outlay reserve account. And that's how that would be. But it does take town meeting to put it back in there.
Yeah, sure.
And, but town meeting, again, has already authorized the capital outlay to spend this money as they see fit
That's right.
with your approval.
Right.
Because you guys act as town meeting when they're not in session, is there?
So if it comes out of the, I'm sorry, you done yet?
I am, yes, thanks, Pat, thank
So
you.
if it comes out of the capital outlay reserve,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so 1.1 million comes out of there, now that's 1.1 million that they're not gonna have.
Correct.
What's the time frame until one gets back?
It's
April, what do we have town meeting? 14th?
Okay,
April
so-
14th,
So you need it this week,
yes.
so it's gonna be about 4 or 5 months.
Correct.
Is that gonna be problematic for them?
Well, no, it's not. They'll still have a couple $100,000 left over in that. And there's nothing that we anticipate that would be coming at that time in there. So, no. And
So
then,
we still have 100,000 plus.
and you still have your funds there too. And Pat, what I'll also just suggest, 5 years ago, the capital outlay had goose egg. So this is the whole new restructuring of how things are done, to be able to do this without all of a sudden, oh, we got to have an emergency special town meeting, everybody's going to come in, we got to hash this whole thing out. This is where we act more like a business organization. The checks and balances are in there because town meeting voted to give it to the capital outlay committee, and then you guys are in essence the checks on capital spending. It's there.
Anyone else? I'll take a motion.
I make a motion to release from the capital outlay reserve fund 1.085 million to be transferred to the police station building fund pending capital outlay, their meeting.
Perfect.
I second.
Motion made and seconded, what she said. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Great,
There it
thank you
is.
very much. Just a quick update, just a preliminary view on where we are with our free cash, the $1.355 million. What we're looking to do is, you had the presentation from the fire department for the radio system going around, the townwide radio system. So in there's two numbers, 675,000 and 50,000 to go into that component. Again, this is why we use the free cash to pay for these one-time items, because it's not guaranteed the next year. We have $100,000 that's earmarked for the school town special education reserve account, which we set up about 3 years ago so that the school can deal with mid-year anomalies when someone with needs moves in and out. I have $45,000 in here for townwide field maintenance and supplies, $22,000 for recreation committee, $200,000 for the North Carver Water District. That's normally been $250,000. We're starting to cut them back so that they can, adjust their issues a little bit better. And they did have a surplus this year, so it makes sense to start to move that back. And then the final one is $262,000 tied into this town hall fire suppression project that we're doing for a cistern. Because you probably read in the paper the issues with the library, and then we have to build a cistern anyway with the police station. So as we're building the system with the police station, we're upgrading it so that it can be used for the whole complex down here as needed. And it gives the fire department an additional capacity. Tied into this, I think Chief says that they need, I think it's 9 more points, it might be 12 more points to go to a Class 1 versus a Class 2, which you heard with the insurance stuff. This helps get them a few of the points too by doing that. So these are the items that we're looking at for them. So, that's all I got. Any questions?
The chairman was,
He told me to take over, and he's right there.
Yeah.
Any questions,
Choke you to
anyone?
death in the bathroom.
You guys must have some questions.
No questions for me.
I'm usually not that articulate.
You did a very good job tonight.
Well, thank you.
Either that or I'm finally catching on.
Sorry.
Just trying to keep the silliness out of it, that's all.
Is that it? Did we throw them out?
Yeah, he's all done.
They're all
No one
done?
has questions.
Apparently.
No one has any questions?
Thank you all. And like I said, on the 5th is, we'll have handouts, we'll have. Second. I keep on doing that. On the 2nd, we'll have handouts and we'll have, a full-blown presentation on each one of these with the justification as to why things are being done, all in our process of continuous improvement.
Do me a favor, shoot me out an email, let me know what the capital outlay decision is.
Yep, we will do that.
I'll share it with the board.
They're meeting at Monday at 8 AM, it looks like, if anybody wants to come.
Yeah, I won't be
Meeting.
here.
Michael, before you leave,
Yes, sir.
I'd just like to thank you for the emails that are going out with your updates, because it gives us a little more insight instead of seeing just one side of everybody screaming on the net. At least we get both sides now, we can go from there.
Well,
Thank you very much.
You know, actually, I do have a question. I'm glad you said that, Joyce. There was some nonsense running around social media,
Silliness?
silliness, the usual silliness, about Chick-fil-A and we don't pay enough money to our workers in this town and they deserve a living wage and we should have 50/50 insurance and so forth and so on.
75-25. We have 50-50 for most.
Well, and we should go back to 75-25. With your permission, I'm going to ask the finance department to compile what that impact would be, because I'm assuming that the rate of pay is a negotiated contract in a step grid. So if you change one, you have to change them all. So if we take the low end of whatever it is and bring it up to the Chick-fil-A number of 1661, for some reason that stuck in my head, then that percentage has to ripple through the entire grid, does it not? The
If
whole
they're
matrix.
union, if they're not union, they're not on step. There's a department in Carver that is not union.
So couple that with the insurance costs, and I'm curious that this got put out there, but there seemed to be no mechanism to fund it. This is back to we need to do this, and that's as far as the statement goes. We should give everybody Big Macs in the town, and no one knows how to pay for it. Maybe we should all get brand-new pickup trucks.
I agree with that one, too.
But no one knows how to pay for it. So I'm going to request Meg, if she has a moment, to give me some rough numbers on that. And maybe we'll discuss this more at December 2nd meeting, and maybe we can invite the author of this to come and explain how he thinks he's going to pay for it. What's the committee's thoughts on that? Huh?
We don't need no stinking explanation for where the money's coming from. We just need the idea of it. I'm just
Oh, okay.
being facetious.
Well, I think that's a great idea then, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think, to answer a couple of your questions, is that all of our contracts, some are union, some are not, let me just stick to the union, are all negotiated. So about 5 years ago, the board unanimously moved forward with their position of bifurcating contracts for any new hire. So if you're an existing employee, you stay at the 75-25. If you're a new hire, you go to 50-50 for healthcare. So the town shares equally in your healthcare. In addition to that, town meeting voted a home rule petition so that anybody that retires after 2025 also goes to 50-50 healthcare. If they retire before 2025, again, giving people 10 years to make a decision, then they can stay at the 75-25. But focusing on the contracts is that when those were negotiated with the police, with the clerical, with the DPW, and with others, is that in order for that concession to be done, we had to raise up some of the salaries. So for them giving up the 75-25 to go to 50-50 for new hires, we had to pay more for that. And that was part of the bargaining piece that was done. We've also, over the last few years, and you've all seen the salary grids that we have in the town, in the warrant, is to what each group's gotten over the last, I think I'm up to 14 years now running total, and you can see what bargaining groups or non-bargaining groups have received certain dollar amounts that we've been trying to equalize that. But again, that's all based upon a negotiated agreement that we're gonna give up 75-25 to go to 50-50 in exchange for a higher wage. So, you know, people have agreed, and every skill set in town has a different pay scale. And, you know, whether you work at Chick-fil-A, I don't know if that number's for everybody there. You know, I don't know if that's for the manager, I don't know if that's for the head window person. But our employees work hard, they've agreed to the numbers they have, and we come back and rebargain those every 3 years. Now, what's important is that also saved the town from layoffs. That if you need to go back to 75, from 75 to 75-25, from 50-50, there's going to have to be hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars that's going to have to be created for that. That can only come from one place. I mean, we can cut departments, but again, I mean, we know the fire department, the budget's $600,000. How many hundreds of thousands of dollars can you cut from them? Which leads to the only way that could be done would be an operational override, which I just don't see this town ever supporting. So, you know, that's kind of, you know, in a nutshell, the different pieces to make that up. I see Pat's all jumping to say something.
What difference does it make what Chick-fil-A or any other?
It makes no difference to me. The point is that it was,
They can do whatever they want.
yes, they can. It was put out there that we're the bad guys.
They just charge more money for chicken.
Right, it was put out there that we're the bad guys because you can make more money working at Chick-fil-A than you can make working for the town of Carver. That was the incendiary comment.
If I'm not mistaken, I think the insinuation was there's something wrong here. To which my response is if we're posting a position for a part-time maintenance position in the town buildings, and somebody chooses to take that employment opportunity, then there's nothing wrong here.
That's right.
We live in a free market economy where people can choose to take whatever jobs they want to take. This is an indentured servitude. Nobody's forced to take a job. Somebody comes and applies for this job and wants to take this job, then that's a clear indication that there's nothing wrong here, that somebody would rather work for the town of Carver on a part-time basis in the maintenance department than working at Chick-fil-A. And there's nothing wrong with that. So this inclination or desire to identify problems that may or may not exist is a toxic type of situation that's not helpful, quite frankly. And in a perfect world, when problems are things like this are identified, there would be solutions proposed, or some sense of a remedy that might make sense and how to fund that remedy. But I think in this particular instance, the insinuation was that there's a big problem here because we are not proactively paying people an exorbitant amount of money to work in part-time positions in the maintenance department when the position may not require that. I'm not saying that they don't work hard enough to earn it, but simply if people are willing to take the job for $20 an hour, why should you proactively pay them $30 just because Chick-fil-A is paying $16.50? Doesn't make any sense. So I'm not sure what the point was, to be quite honest.
And you can add on to that too, you got a defined pension with public employment. Who else has defined pension that's not a public employee? Doesn't exist. You know, I mean, there's so many, well, enough. The silliness. We'll just leave it to silliness.
I took it as a diss to the town, and that's why I brought it up tonight. I'm
So-
not saying that we need to compete. That's not my intent at all. I'd like to know that if we were to try to do that, how are we supposed to pay for it?
You shouldn't even compare.
No, we shouldn't. But this is the kind of incendiary nonsense that gets put out on social media and gets everybody all stirred up over how much Carver sucks. Well, frankly, I don't believe Carver does. So,
You're not allowed to yell fire in a crowded room. It's against the law. That's just my analogy. But to your original question, yes, as finance chair and as the finance committee, Meg's more than willing to help you out on any type of data you guys need.
she does.
The only thing that I always asked is that let her determine when she can get that to you.
Yes,
Is that you put a
Absolutely.
request in and she will make best efforts to get it to you as soon as she reasonably can.
yep.
I use the word reasonably.
Well, I bring it to you, let you know,
Yep.
so that, I'll send her off an email, get CC'd on it anyway. But I am gonna request, just so that for nothing else, then call it ammunition. You know, this kind of negativity over the entire way this town is operated really does no one any good. The bashing over the playground, over the police station, over the town administrator, over the various departments. There's always something, there's a group in this town that there's always something wrong. Regardless of what. I don't care how you do it, how you cut it, there's something wrong. And you'll never please them. And that's okay. But they seem to be the ones that are making the most noise. So this becomes the squeaky wheel. So I'm at a point now where there's a group of us that are looking at it saying, it's time to start finding the pluses. Not to start a war, but to sit back and find the pluses to offset the negatives and make the corrections. That's all. Because I'm tired of listening to it. I really am sick and tired of listening to it.
You know, I will say this, and this town has a group of dedicated department heads, and Pat, you can attest from what you saw years ago, that are committed to doing the right thing for the town and put the extra effort into making that happen. You do not find that in most municipalities. I know, I've seen it, I've been there. And you've got a group, you know, with all our warts, I put second to none. And I think the proof is demonstrated in our audit reports, where we are financially. The fact that we can even do what we did today with the police station. Find me another town that can do that. You know, unless I'm Newton, that just, you know, grows money on trees.
That's right.
That's it. That's it. Duxbury can't even do this.
You know, the reality of the whole thing is, when you look at it, when I look at it, from my point of view, the first time I started in the town of Carver working here was 1993. And ever since that point, there has been a progression of improvement within the town. Back then, there wasn't even a town administrator.
Back then, it was Boss Hog and the Cat.
Oh, yeah. I remember the days. And ever since that point, ever since that time, there has been a steady progression of improvement within the town. Absolutely. And I saw that over the years, and then there was a continuing progression of improvement. And it's still going on, and it's very nice to see.
Yeah.
You bet.
And Michael's 100% right with the department heads. And our last meeting is an example of that. Town hall closes at 4 o'clock. Meg didn't go home and come back. She stayed and got some work done in her office and was here for 7 o'clock. And then said, have a nice night, and wasn't upset or nothing. Mary Ann took the time to come to our meeting, and on the way out I said, send me a bill for tonight, because this is your time. She said, I can't do that. So she came here for free because she didn't feel it was right to submit a bill. So this is the kind of stuff that's behind the scenes, and I'm sorry, you can't buy it. You can't buy that loyalty. That's something you earn. So I'm pretty proud of the way these departments run. I'm exceptionally proud of the fiscal responsibility. You get a guy like Mark Dufley, who you talk about squeezing a nickel to make a budget work. When someone like the finance department head says he came in within his budget, and I still don't understand how he could have done that. But he did it. So that's pretty good. You know, we have a fire department that's second to none. Craig Weston's not doing it for the paycheck. You know, he's doing it because it's the right thing to do. These firefighters, and I go back to what they said before, when they look at you and they say it's a privilege. It's a privilege for you to run into a burning building for the town of Carver for $17 an hour, and you think it's a privilege. Yes, we do. Okay. Thank God we got these guys. So that's my take on it. That's it for you? That's it for you. Mr. Moore,
That's all, folks.
you want the
Thank you,
TV?
Yeah.
Michael, will you help him hook that laptop up to the big screen? Please? Well, I don't know why we don't have the little thing like we got at the library. How come?
Working on it.
The wireless thing. Yeah. We are going to have a transfer request at the next meeting.
Senior Alan Dunham.
Yeah, tough to,
Geez, I guess, Savory, you like trains.
third world country's a dictator, right?
What's that?
Yeah,
I just they were decorating today.
on the positive side. Yeah.
While Savory's getting that up.
Decorating ours as a ballerina. Feathers and rhinestones.
While Savory's getting this up, this is the survey, Madam Vice Chair. This is a survey that was done for the senior citizens in town. And I've already heard some of the stuff with it from the Council on Aging. But this is going to give us more of a fiscal impact to what the survey results in. Oh, did you? I did mine online. Are we blowing up stuff or what?
No, my computer was in the car. It's very cold.
Oh,
It had to reboot, so it's processing.
I'm watching Franny's screens down there go crazy.
It's an old computer. As of January 10th, it will no longer be supported by Microsoft,
Well,
which is, and they don't tell you to put in the new program. They tell you to buy a new computer. Okay, hi everybody. I'm Savory Moore. I live in South Carver, and I was the chairman, still am, I guess, of the Council on Aging Needs Assessment Committee. We were a group of 5 people who got together a little over a year ago to try to figure out what the seniors and the future seniors in this town are going to need moving forward. We met approximately once a month, and basically what came out of this was a survey. I'm not going to give you the whole results of the survey. What I'm going to give you is are the slides that probably have to do with what we're going to be looking for in the future from probably a financial state. So this presentation was put together by a consulting firm that the Needs Assessment Committee hired in order to create the survey. Yes?
Sorry to interrupt. Do you mind sharing with all of us who's on the Needs Assessment Committee? Who the 5 individuals are?
Yes, it was Pat Henderson, who is from Cranberry Village, Joanne Nelson, who's from South Meadow Village, George was on it, and Ken, who's Ken's last name?
I have a hard time with following
Ken,
it.
I don't remember his last name. He's on the Veterans Committee here in town.
Okay.
That were the 5 of us who were the members of the committee. Stephen Cole, who was our town planner, and Carol Julius, who's the head of the director of the COA, were our town liaisons.
Okay.
all right? They're the ones who secured the budget for us to go out and get the consultant and move on from where we were.
And Stephen Cole is still, even though he's no longer a town employee any longer, isn't he still involved with this?
Yes, he is. He's seeing this
He's
through
seeing
to
it
a certain
to the
extent, pretty much on I believe, a per diem or contractual basis, just to follow this through. So what you're going to see here are the results of the survey, but from the language, so to speak, of the consultant. So this was their first slide, just saying that what they got out of the survey was that the town of Carver values its older residents, and we would certainly hope so. So the survey goals were to learn about Carver's older adults ages 55 plus. We included 55 plus because we all realized that the wheels of government sometimes move a little slowly. So if we kept it at 65 plus, then if things didn't happen, we would be missing a group of people who would be using these services within the next 5 to 10 years. We wanted to assess the people's awareness of the current Council on Aging and provide insight into the future, what the needs are going to be going forward. The methodology was the COA Needs Assessment Committee met. We also had a focus group. We had 12 people come to a focus group put on by the consultants at the fire station, and basically it was an open forum where they could just put out any ideas that they had, any concerns they had, anything they've heard from adjoining towns or knew about. Actually, there was one gentleman who, someone had mentioned that 60 was the new 40, and he interrupted to say that no, 80 was. So it was a very good 2-hour meeting. We developed the survey in conjunction with the consultants. One of the things, the primary thing that we did in developing the survey was to make sure that this survey was available and sent to every resident in town who was 55 and above. We didn't want to take a sampling. We wanted to make sure that everybody had a chance to have their voice heard, so that they couldn't come back later and said, hey, I didn't know. So that was our main concern with the survey, and that's ended up what we did. The marketing of the survey, there was a postcard that went out to everybody 55 and above saying this thing is coming. There were also a couple of stories in the newspaper, and about a week after the postcard, the actual survey arrived in the mail to everybody. We got the list of everybody from the town clerk's office through the Carver census and also the tax rolls. The survey was, you could return the survey by mail, you could fill it out online, or you could drop it off at town hall and I believe the library and perhaps another location. So there were multiple ways of having your survey sent back. And all the surveys came into town hall, and all of the data was culled by employees in the town administrator's office for all of the ones that were returned manually that had to be tabulated. So, who responded? Carver's population at the time of the survey was 11,500 people. The population 55 above was 4,095. 35% of Carver's residents are 55 and above. And of those 4,095, we had 1,256 responses, which is a 30% response rate, which is a phenomenal response rate for a survey. I spent a 40-year career in advertising in New York, and if we got 4 or 5% on a response rate, it was phenomenal. So our clients were happy and paid us. So to get 30% was very, very pleasing for all of us. So there's a lot of interest in town, and there's a lot of people concerned about their future and wanting to make sure that their voices were heard. And sending it out to the 4,095 is exactly what we expected to get a lot of responses. So the response by age. The left-hand column is the percentage of people, of the 4,000 people by age group. And we did 10-year increments of age group, 55 to 64, 65 to 74, et cetera, and then 85 plus for the last one. So 40% of the 4,000 people in town are 55 to 64, 37 are the next age group, and then, so as you can see, the older people get, the less they are a percentage of our population. But the participation rate in the survey actually went the other way. The older the people were, the more we got a percentage of their return. So that in itself was quite telling. Employment and retirement status. 55 to 64, 60% are working full-time, 12% are part-time, and 5% are getting to retire. So if you add that up, it comes to 77%. That's 23% that either never worked or are retired already. And as you go further into the older age groups, you notice that the number that's not accounted for gets bigger and bigger. So when you get to 85, 2% are working full-time, 3% are working part-time, and nobody else is getting ready to retire. So the rest of them are all retired, or they never worked. Health, vitality, and fitness. Most people indicated that they felt younger, or they feel younger than their chronological age. And this is important because it goes to the kind of activities that people are going to be looking for in the future. More than half indicated they are in excellent or good health, including almost 50% of ages 75 to 84, and nearly a third of those 85 and over. 48% identify as physically fit, and 37% as average fitness. So that's a big number. That's, if you extrapolate that across the entire population that we ask, you're talking about 2,000 people who feel that they're physically fit, who are age 55 and over. So that's a big number of people. Social engagement. This again will be important because it goes to how people spend their time. The younger people are certainly more outgoing by 48% to 21%. As you get to the older age group, 39% consider themselves outgoing, but 31% consider themselves to be homebodies. That doesn't necessarily mean they choose to be that way, but that's the way they are. And that will be something that when we come back to people's interests later on in this presentation, you'll see where this fits in. Getting around. Almost everybody drives themselves, including 62% of people 85 and over. Riding the bus, the third column, that's the GATRA bus that is provided by the Council on Aging that has scheduled trips to supermarkets, Shaw's on Tuesdays and Market Basket on Wednesdays, et cetera. They also take appointments for people to, if they have a doctor's appointment. The bus for $1.50, I believe it is, or a book of 10 trips for $10. It's very low cost. They will take anybody who calls and requests a ride. They will take them in anywhere they need to go, as long as the town abuts Carver. And that's going to be important later when we get to another part of the survey. But just remember that part, that abutting Carver is the conditions under which GATRA will give people rights. Awareness of the fact that there is a Council on Aging. 55 to 64-year-olds, 46% even aren't even aware it's here. You get to the older people, 19%. Only 19% are unaware. But still, that's a big number of people. And awareness, 24% for the lower age group, 64% for our older citizens. Familiarity of services that the COA currently offers. Dial-A-Ride, 38% excuse me, 18% have never heard of it. They don't know the GATRA bus exists. 54% of the respondents don't know that home visits are available. Now, a home visit is if someone is confined to their home and is basically alone and just needs somebody to come visit them. The COA provides that service. More than half of the people 55 and over don't know that exists. And I'm sure there are people there who would benefit from knowing that. The other things here, weekday lunches, 37% don't know that it exists. Free meal delivery for those who are homebound. 33% of our seniors don't know it doesn't exist, or don't know it exists. So there are big numbers. It comes down to an awareness in this town of making sure that the seniors are aware of what is offered to them. And as the awareness increases, so will the needs of these people, and so will the costs associated with it as people become more aware. This is an important slide. This is the likelihood of future use. If you look here, the $3 lunch, 71% of the people may or will use it, compared to 4% who already use it. So that's a huge increase in meals. If you look at the dial-a-ride, which is the fifth one to the right, 18% won't use it. 79% of the seniors may use the dial-a-ride. Right now, 4% use it. We have 3 GATRA buses. They are booked almost solidly every weekday. They're getting a 4th bus, and I'm sure that will be booked pretty soon. So we have 4 buses for 4% of the elderly population. And another 79% may want to use the bus. So that's a huge amount of increased bus usage, and that is going to come into play financially. The free meal delivery is another area, although it has a higher ratio of not being used. The home visits, the day trips, and the info and referral are relatively low-cost items. The day trips, I think, are paid for by the participants themselves. Meals on Wheels, do you qualify? 5% said yes. And if that's extrapolated to the population, that's 192 people said yes, they do qualify for Meals on Wheels. I don't know. I would like to know more. Extrapolates to 293 additional people who may qualify and may want Meals on Wheels. So that's another 150% of cost going towards the Meals on Wheels if each of these people qualify and do want that service. Awareness, again, home visits. For this is among residents in poor health. These are the people who need our services the most. 45% of the people in poor health did not know that home visits are available. So if the awareness gets out there, these people are going to start looking to home visits. 18% of the people in poor health have not heard that there are free meal deliveries. 73% know about it. They're not just taking part in it yet. So again, as more and more awareness happens and people become knowledgeable about what's available to them, I think they're going to utilize it more. Areas of concern. We asked people to tell us what their areas of concern were. The largest piece of the pie, 68%, had none of the above of the items that we listed. 10% have mobility issues. 8% are taking care of an aging parent or spouse. 7% have serious health concerns. 4% have to choose sometimes between filling a prescription and buying food. And that's, if you extrapolate 4% of 4,000 people, you're at 100 and something, 160 So that's a lot of people who are having to make very, very serious choices. I'm lonely and would like to socialize more. And this goes back, is 3%. That goes back to the people who responded earlier that they were homebodies. They would like to get out more. They want to get to a place where they can socialize more. So, as I said earlier, they consider themselves homebodies, but not necessarily by choice. We did a presentation, the committee did a presentation at South Meadow Village, and there's one of the people who came to our presentation uses the GATRA service. She can't drive any longer. And she was forced to change her entire medical team because her medical team was not in a town that abutted Carver. So in order for her to be able to get to a doctor, she had to change doctors. And that is another thing that, you know, I think is something worthy of looking at as for the COA Board of Directors. But you know, at some point, I think that's something that is going to need to be addressed. Interests by age. We gave a list of things that we asked people to indicate 3 of the things that they would like to do. The ones that I've highlighted sort of in color, fitness-related classes were either first, second, or third in all age groups. So that tells me that these people are looking for a place to go that has space to have some kind of classes, some kind of fitness, whether it be yoga, whether it be dance, something that they can do with fitness. Group trips. Group trips was second by the youngest age group and the #1 thing that the other 3 age groups wanted to do. Those group trips are conducted on the GATRA bus. So as these people are looking to get out more and do more things, that's now more buses, because that's how the people get away. Social gatherings. Social gatherings goes higher and higher as the older the people get. So again, this goes to the fact that these older people, even though they consider themselves homebodies, they don't necessarily want to do that. They want to have a place where they can go and socialize. They want to be able to get out. And an interesting thing is that lifelong learning. It doesn't matter how old people are, they want to continue to learn. So that would be sort of like speakers, seminars, things like that, where people could come and just sit for a couple of hours and learn about birds or learn about wildlife. But again, that would require a place that would be available to them to do that. We asked everybody to choose from a list of things about what was most important to them in the COA facility. And I think this is probably where you're looking for the most information. The #1 answer was to have the COA building conveniently located. Where it is now in South Carver, people obviously from North Carver don't feel that it is. In the middle of winter, it's a 10-mile round trip. Regular hours of operation. They do have regular hours of operation now, but they're relatively short. They're 9 to 3, I think, Monday through Friday. And the third highest response was for flexible space for a variety of activities. So there's a lot of thought. These people, the people who responded, are looking for a place that they can spend a lot of time in their golden years doing things that they would like to do. Some of the comments that came out of this question, we asked people to write down other things that they thought were important. Cheerful, accessible, comfortable, warm, fitness area, lounge area. We didn't know if that meant drinks, but we don't think it did.
It did.
Oh, it did, okay. Classrooms. The list goes on and on. The full packet of results that we got back from the consultant is about this thick, and that will be shared with the COA Board of Directors as soon as it's finished up. Community involvement. Of everybody who was surveyed, 19% are involved, 25% consider them neutral, and 56% are uninvolved.
What's the definition of involved?
That they have nothing to do with the town. They just live here and that's it.
Okay, but if someone says that they're involved, what does that mean? That they-
It means that they probably volunteer for something, or they're on a board, sit on a committee or a board, or do things that aren't even related to the government, but do things maybe at their village. You know, they may head up their village's community center or something like that. Information sources. We asked how people got their information about the COA. By a landslide, word of mouth was the highest response. And as we all know, word of mouth can not always be the most truthful. People still use mail. That was the second one. And that is primarily the newsletter that goes out to everybody 65 and over, 62 and over. People still read the paper, Carver Reporter. We've got 382. Facebook, email, village website, and Wicked Local Carver. So they were not the top vote getters, but they were certainly mentioned. And as the 55 to, I would say, 75, those two age groups, as they get older and become more and more involved, I think you're going to see this shift from mail and newspaper to more of an online presence. As the people who are more familiar with and who have worked with or on computers for a good part of their career and are more comfortable with it, age in this community. The monthly newsletter, 35% of the people read it every month, 16% on occasion, 25% don't, and 24% don't get it. So there's almost half of the people who we need to reach don't get the newsletter or don't read the newsletter. And it may just be that they're not interested, but again, I think that part of the what we'll see at the end is part of the recommendations are to change our communications and to get people more aware of everything that's available. Future website use. This goes to what I was just saying. As you can see, future website use, the answer is yes is 67% of the youngest age group, 23% of the older. And so communicating through the internet and through online, through the town website or a website for the COA is going to become more and more important as time goes on. So that's going to be a shift in how information is disseminated to the town. So the recommendations, and these recommendations came out of the consultants based on the information that came out of the survey. Develop a clear and concise communication strategy and plan, making sure that the people in this town who are 55 and over and know what's available to them, and make sure that it continues, because every year more people turn 55, so we have to continue to make sure that that group knows what's going on. Prioritize outreach to Carver's most vulnerable older adults. Those are the people who have to choose between food and drugs. Those are the people who may have to change their doctors because transportation isn't available to them. So we have to make sure that those people get the town's full attention, because they deserve to have a quality of life that someone of that age should probably have. Develop community support programs to build capacity among volunteers. We know that every time that the select board meets, there's always an announcement at the beginning saying there are openings on every committee in town. We also had a slide before that had that quite a large percentage of people are uninvolved in the town. So those people are there. We just need to find them. And it may be as simple as instead of looking for an open-ended thing, put exactly what you're looking for. You know, put exactly the skill sets that a volunteer position would be looking for. And that way, someone who has that skill set can say, hey, you know what, I can do that, instead of just having a broad stroke. Stay engaged with the older community. Again, this goes to communication in making sure that they're not forgotten. And build the capacity within the COA. You've seen that people are looking for warm and comfortable and a central location and a facility that offers flexibility so that they can do the different things that they want to do. Because as that gentleman said at the focus group, 40 is the new 80, or 80 is the new 40. So, you know, the activity meter on aging adults in this time now, people aren't retiring looking to play cribbage. They're retiring and looking to play pickleball. So these are the things that we need to look at. And that's basically it. I'm happy to answer any questions. What I want to do, I just want to finish, is that the next step with this survey is to have the entire survey put in front of the Council on Aging Board of Directors. I was just appointed as an alternate to the COA Board of Directors, so I'll be able to continue the knowledge that I have. Alan is also on the COA Board of Directors. So it's the next step is really to get the entire survey in front of the Board of Directors to see what steps are needed to take next. My guess is that the results would have to be looked at by a firm, possibly the one we already hired to do the survey, to find out exactly what the best next steps are for the results that we've gotten here. But that's going to be up to the COA Board of Directors. So that's basically what the survey showed us. We were never about a building. We were always about what the needs were. We had the one question about the building because we figured we had to get it in there. But our committee was not, let's get a new building. Our committee was, what do the seniors in town need? And I think the survey gave us some very, very good data moving forward. So, yes.
Quick question, I'm not sure if you'll have this number, but of the 4,000 plus residents that qualify for the survey, do you know how many lived in a 55 plus community, or how many lived?
I do have that. I think I have it. I think I have the whole. I think I have the whole.
I thought there was a breakdown by community. Say again? Community housing.
All right, this is from the full survey. I culled this to show finance, but 64% live in a private residence, 34% live in a village. A small percentage, I mean, right there you're at 98%, so, you know, less than 2% live in public housing or answered other.
But the public housing is a small percent, that percentage is all of public housing.
Right.
And you have respondents age 55 and older, so obviously that group, or that age group, 55 to 64, would most likely be in private housing also.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wouldn't be in a village.
Yep. I was curious, because I know villages will often sort of do community gatherings within those villages. My grandparents lived
Yes.
at Waterview for a long time, and
That's a very good point, and we were aware of that. And there are probably duplication of things that would normally happen at a council on aging in a regular town that had more participation or did not have the village situation.
Yep.
Those things are happening in the village, and there's a way, there could be a way to meld those.
Right.
You know, there could be either a shared information or even competition.
Yeah, kind of see who's doing it right and see what.
Yeah,
they're
but I
doing
mean,
for that.
there could even be social competition.
Right.
You know, you could have a, what's that, Trivial Pursuit. You know, one at each village and one for the general public, and then the top three go to, you know, the finals in the library, and, you know, and people get together and cross-pollinate so that they get to meet people who are outside of their everyday world.
Right.
So.
They call that cross-pollination.
Yes, I agree. But, you know, I think I think people want to socialize more. I think that the people who consider themselves homebodies are not there by choice. And I think that giving them a warm, comfortable place to socialize would go a long way. Yes.
That was one of the questions I was going to ask. How many were in private homes? Was there any discussion about tax relief so that, you know, if they're paying property tax, leaving more money in their pocket so that maybe some of them don't have that discussion, that choice?
No, we didn't discuss that, and I think that was probably outside of the scope of the COA and the needs of the COA. That's probably a discussion that could happen within the COA with an outside group.
Or what they thought about it, because there's an awful lot of questions about, you know, different activities. If they're allowed to keep more money in their pocket, maybe some of the things change.
That may have come up in a discussion. We had a sort of a, not a battle, but we had a lot of discussions within our group as to what questions to include. We probably discarded 3 times as many questions as we asked because we didn't want the survey to be so long that people just said, I'm not going to fill this out. It's 14 pages. So it was a battle to keep it short enough so people wouldn't lose interest, but to get as much data on the broader things that we could, as opposed to getting the finer details. We did ask anybody who wanted to add any more information to write down their name and address, or email address, or phone number, any way that they wanted to be contacted, and put it in the survey coming back to us. And we had well over 200 people who wrote back saying, yeah, I'd like to throw out my ideas on this.
I think I put that in already.
Yeah. Okay.
The real reason that I asked Savory to do this tonight is because this is like the 3rd time now I've seen this, because I saw it when you brought it to the select board.
Yeah.
And then we saw a Reader's Digest version of it with the COA. But this is going to be something coming forward that the FinCom, there's going to be a budget. We're going to need to look at this. And the big question is going to be, because of the villages, do we continue to put a bunch of money into just the COA, or do we look at the COA as being COA during the day and, you know, a place for the Cub Scouts to rent at night and other functions to go on within that to make use of the property? And then ultimately, if we're looking at building a new building, what do we do with the existing COA, which personally, and this is strictly personally, the town of Carver should never give that building up. It's a historical building. If anything ever gets done with it, it should go to this historical society and become a museum. But it should never, ever be sold, ever. And if we were to create a new facility for the COA, what else would go into it? So these are just things that we're looking at going forward, so that this doesn't come back and all of a sudden we're sitting on a board saying, well, where'd all this come from? So it's kind of like an informational thing, so that they could get it out to us so we could look at it and see what's next, you know? Thank you very much.
Yeah, I was on the master plan committee in 2016, actually started in 2015 and went through 2016. And one of our members in discussing the COA did bring up a community center idea that would be multi-use for, for people. So I believe that that's in there as a suggestion in the master plan. That's on file on the town website that was passed by town meeting in 2016, I believe. Another thing I just wanted to mention, I'm glad you brought this up, is that one of the things I learned in the master plan is that in 2001, when the previous master plan had been done, seniors made up 25% of Carver's population. And here we are today, and they make up 35%. So if you look at trends, Carver is aging. Carver is getting much older. School children in 2001, there were over 2,000 students in town. I think this year there are less than 1,600. So it's going this way. The seniors we're getting older and fewer children. So I don't expect that the trend will continue at that rate. I don't expect that in 30 years it's going to be 85% senior citizens, but I do think the trend is going that way. Stephen Cole, our former town planner, is now working in the Plymouth Redevelopment Authority, and the projections for this area, southeastern Massachusetts, is for the senior population to continue to increase for the next 20 to 25 years. So, we're going to have an older, probably more robust and energetic senior population than we do now, and certainly than we did 15 years ago. Anyone else?
It's good info. Thank you.
All right, you're very welcome.
Saber, I appreciate it very
Sure.
much. Thank you.
Yep.
Just gives us a heads up on what's to come, that's all. It kind of combines some sustainability.
Yeah.
We're looking at that too, and it worked out well, so that we just have a grasp on what may be coming down the pike. All right, let's take a look at the minutes from, July 18th. Now, I was questioned as to whether this was accurate or not, so I had to go back and double check, but it truly is. This is the first Finance Committee meeting that we've had, because all the other ones were townwide budget sustainability meetings. This is the first FinCom meeting we've had since July 18th. So if you take a peek at these, and then I would take a motion.
I make a motion to approve the minutes for July 18th as written.
I second.
You should second, because you wrote them.
Wait, that's why I had questions
You
on
were the
it.
recording secretary. Motion made and seconded to accept the minutes as written. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We took care of topics not anticipated with the town manager. Any committee member comments? Is it bedtime?
It's a new phone, I'm trying to figure out how to shut it off.
So not everybody that just voted is here at that meeting, so we gotta, figure out.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
You're absolutely correct.
I wasn't here, so I suppose I could abstain.
The only one was, Steve's not here, Pat Keneally and Bill Duggan.
Okay.
So,
Should be 6. Because Pat was, unless Pat counts.
he really can't be, well, he was potential member, but he really can't, so it would be 6. 6-0. Sorry, Pat. You were not a member of the board at that meeting. Thank you for bringing that up.
Welcome.
Next meeting was, as I reminded Michael 3 times, December 2nd. And he asked for that because the 3rd is the selectmen's meeting. And he would like to be able to go to the selectmen's meeting, saying he just came from the FinCom the night before, and preliminarily, we had approved it, approved the budget, or had whatever questions we have. And then our meeting, probably beginning in January, and then we'll do 2 a month, will be with department heads. I don't think we're gonna, if it's December 2nd, I don't know, I don't see us really scheduling a middle of December meeting. If there's a need for it, we will, but I don't think there will be. And the budget sustainability study won't pick up again until after town meeting in the spring. We got enough going on with all the budgets for this year. So, that's where that's at. So we're good for December 2nd? Mr. Duggan? You know good for December 2nd?
I won't be here, no.
Where you gonna be?
What's that?
Where you going?
North Carolina, my son, Thanksgiving, work. For 2 weeks, before and after.
And you're looking for tax breaks on your house? You don't live here.
And so I can go, he's paying for me to go down there to help him work.
Yeah.
That's the only way I can go down, is I don't have enough money.
Then there's the house in Maine. Poor guy.
That's something that comes from the left, penalizing the rich.
Oh,
Not that I fall into that category.
listen, Bernie,
What's left of the rich?
Huh?
What's left of the rich?
excuse me, I take a motion to
I
adjourn.
make a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, one thing,
Yes, sir.
we want to talk about Monday night meetings moving forward. I know right now we're Thursdays, but does Mondays work?
I think Mondays
Best for
work.
everybody?
Does Monday work for everybody?
I know it works, does it work for you? That's good. I don't know, it works.
Yeah, it works for me. I think Monday works great. I know it typically works for Steve Pratt, but he's stuck in Rhode Island with his, his mother and father's house tonight, I think because of the weather. And I don't have a problem, there's nothing else going on Mondays. And then there's no conflict with the school committee, which is now moved to Thursdays. So, yeah, Mondays work great. Won't have the second meeting of the month, of course, for January and February, but yeah. Well, I think if this
Yep.
works,
Monday holidays are the only concern, but there's
yeah, we wouldn't
not
schedule.
a ton of those.
So that would work. Okay.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. There was a 3rd, a 4th, a 5th. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Good night.